Not sure if you should stand your ground or if you need to run away. This is Alan with Quarter Horse Arms. In a previous podcast, I talked about castle law, and I said I wasn't going to talk about the stand your ground law or the duty to retreat stuff, but then it occurred to me, a lot of you may live in those states, so I figured, what the hell, let's do this. I want you to keep in mind that I am not an attorney, nor do I know the laws of all of the states, nor would I pretend to or even want to. So if you have any questions, I would say check with an attorney in your state, check the state laws, or whatever you think you need to do. The Stand Your Ground law came under fire, no pun intended in this one, when George Zimmerman shot Trayvon Martin, who was a 17-year-old kid who was unarmed. Now, the Stand Your Ground law gives you the right of self-defense. It allows you to use deadly force against some violent crimes. Now, what makes, the killing of Trayvon Martin weird is that under the Stand Your Ground law, George Zimmerman effectively and successfully defended himself against manslaughter charges. So I guess, on one hand, you never know what a jury's going to do when they get their case to go deliberate on. On the other hand, the Stand Your Ground law came under fire. One of the neat differences between a castle law and a Stand Your Ground law is the castle law pretty much delineates where and under what circumstances you can use deadly force, and it spells out in those circumstances that you do not have a duty to retreat. In a perfect world, yeah, it'd be a good idea to get away from a bad situation. So, in the Stand Your Ground law, some of the circumstances that they would allow it is if you're under use of deadly force, if you're under threat of sexual assault, great bodily injury. Some places recognize if you're kidnapped. And so all of this stuff kind of gets thrown together. And, George Zimmerman's, or at least part of his defense was saying that he felt threatened and he took action. So, I'm not here to debate the case. Personally, I think Zimmerman was way out of line. He killed somebody who was unarmed and had made apparently no threats. But regardless of that, so the Stand Your Ground law is kind of a fuzzy version of when you can and can't shoot somebody. And, again, when we talk about this, it has to be a real or perceived threat, but you also have to pass the acid test of, is this something that a reasonable, rational person would interpret as a threat? And, as I said in the Castle Law podcast, the people initially making those determinations may be a police officer or an assistant district attorney, and they may already have, some ideas in mind about what's reasonable and what's not reasonable. Someone kicking in your door, at 2 a.m. and you shoot them, that's reasonable under castle law. Shooting somebody trespassing on your property, not so much. However, under certain circumstances, the Stand Your Ground law would potentially allow you to do that. As long as you can establish the threat of, great bodily harm, sexual assault, whatever. So, The other law I want to look at is called the duty to retreat. My version of it is leave the keys and lock up when you're finished. The states, that have a duty to retreat, and the big two you can think of, hopefully would be New York and New Jersey. However, under that kind of policy or law, you have to make a reasonable effort to escape or avoid the threat. Somebody is kicking in your door. The smart thing to do would be somewhere else. I mean, I don't care what the law is in your state. I don't care if it's castle law or stand your ground or duty to retreat. Getting out of a bad situation and getting your family out of a bad situation is a good thing. And avoiding killing somebody is a good thing. Even if you're in the right, do you want to walk around knowing that you've killed somebody? You might. I personally would like to avoid that. Okay, so they break in. You have a duty to get out of there if you can. So if you're restrained or cornered or something, obviously you can't retreat, and then you can use deadly force. But in other circumstances, somebody breaks in through my front door on a duty to retreat. I'm going out the back door, and I'm just hoping that they lock up behind them after they finish taking what they wanted. The other, the serious flaw to me with that kind of a law is if you're the target and they're armed, meaning they broke into your home or place of business or whatever, and you try to run, if you're the target, the trouble is going to follow you. And to make the laws even hazier, some of the states that are stand your ground states, they also have some sort of duty to retreat codicil within those laws. So, like I said, this is where it gets fuzzy. I grew up with if somebody kicks in your door and you shoot them with your shotgun, you need to make sure that the body doesn't get blown out into your front porch or out on the steps. And again, with castle law, at least in North Carolina, that is really not an issue. Because, in that case, kicking in your door to your house or carjacking you or whatever, there's already an implied threat there. But you need to keep in mind with these other ones, like stand your ground law, in particular, is where it's hazy enough that a reasonable person could construe your actions as being excessive. Meaning, did you really need to use deadly force? And a jury may be the one deciding that, and you may not get as lucky as George Zimmerman was in that particular case. However, in a duty to retreat situation, if they have a gun, there's a threat there. But by the same token, I don't know that I'd want to have to get hauled down to the police department, give a statement about why I defended myself, as opposed to providing a statement saying, yeah, that guy kicked in my door and he won't be doing that anymore, and it won't cost $50,000 a year or $60,000 a year to keep him in jail. By the way, don't say that. That would be a bad thing. I'd like to think that, if there's a deliberate act to shoot somebody, you've taken a few seconds to think about it. Like, do I have to shoot this guy? Is my family in danger? Am I in danger? So, at any rate, those are my thoughts on the stand your ground law and duty to retreat. It's, like I said, it's weird and it's funky. At least, being lucky enough to be in North Carolina with the castle law and the presumption of being able to defend yourself, it's, different than some of the states where you are expected to avoid the threat. Okay, so having said all that, I look forward to comments, questions, concerns. You can call or text 919-808-6480. You can email to info@quarterhorsearms.com. And the website is quarterhorsearms.com. And I'm Alan from quarterhorsearms.com. And I am in sunny Snow Camp, North Carolina. I'm joking about the sunny today. You have a great day. You should all be safe out there.